All right, I'd like to go ahead and open up the meeting for Tuesday, August 3rd, 2021 for the Warrenton Board of Aldermen. If you would, please rise and say Pledge of Allegiance with us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first item will be consent agenda.
We have the regular and executive session minutes from July 20th, 2021.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Deloy, seconded by Alderman Porter. Roll call vote.
Alderman Dillard,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz,
Yes.
Alderman Crumpf,
Yes.
Alderman Porter,
Yes.
Alderman Cullum,
Yes.
Alderman Jeffrey.
Yes.
Passes 6-0. Next will be public comments. Any general comments first, if we can, and then then we'll get right to yours. You can sit front row because you're coming up next. So, any comments in general from the public? We'd like for you to come forward to the mic. We'll give you 5 minutes to speak. State your name, please.
I got an email.
Okay, go ahead.
This email came from Josh Ford on June 15th. An executive session was held which involved discussion in the category of personnel. At the last board ballroom meeting in July, the city administrator said that the bill that was put forth that would change the residency requirement and the work experience requirement for the office of the city administrator was a result of said discussion. This bill was on the agenda for several days and is part of the public record. The people of Warrenton deserve to know the full details regarding that bill. Those details include the following. 1, what was the origin of the bill, which Alderman told the city attorney to draft it. 2, what were the changes proposed to the work experience qualifications as months after a new city administrator taken office? For this executive session conversation called into question education work experience credentials. Why would it have been appropriate to address that matter by proposing to change law after the hiring? 3, Alderman Deloy said that part of the bill that proposed changing the work experience qualification was a mistake. If one Alderman said the proposed change to the law was an error, no other Alderman spoke out to refute that statement. How could such a bill have possibly been drafted put on an agenda for 5 days and made it into a meeting? The Aldermen are responsible for bills that are put forth. I'm sure they're aware that by now that many Warrenton residents deserve answers regarding the original bill that was put forth just before.
With that, so like I said, still a little new to me. Is this where we respond, or is this where we wait and we respond later?
It's whatever your pleasure, Mayor, or the board's pleasure if you want to respond.
Would any alderman like to comment on that email?
Not at this time.
I think there's plenty to say in my opinion, and I'll go ahead and address some of these as the mayor. I think if there was any issue, there was a clerical mistake. I think that's honest and open for us to say. It was simple, a clerical mistake on the 3 to 5.5 years that wasn't supposed to be on there. We discussed it. We've already dealt with the situation, and that wasn't supposed to be on there, but thank you for addressing it when it came up. Regardless of what anyone believes a way should be, it was addressed then and handled. As far as any changes, I believe one of the only changes we were looking at was the mileage. So if that's an issue with somebody, that's fine, bring it up. But I'll tell you, that is what we're here to do, is sometimes to change things once we realize that maybe their mileage was wrong. I think the adjustment was by 2 miles. So I get where maybe we'll get some criticism, but it's not by the community in a whole. We don't have a major uprising on it, but I think when an email comes in, we need to address it, and I'll address the situation as is. And not aggravated by it. I just think if you want answers, that's fine. Email in. You may not like the answers, but we'll give you the answers. So thank you for emailing in, Mr. Poor. May not be answering all of them at this time, but I think it was very heavy, and I kind of tried to adjust what I could. Origin of the bill was by executive session through all of us. We collectively decided that was what we were going to go forth. I believe, correct? Work experience qualifications, we just addressed that. Changing the law after hiring, I think it was the oversight of the mileage. I really honestly think there may be a proposition and remove the mileage altogether from that eventually. So I think all those questions were addressed. If they're not, I'm sure we'll get another email and we can address it then. All right, next will be Mr. Beckmeyer, it'll be your turn to come on up if you want to start heading up. Next will be the public comments on the following P&Z items. Park Hills zone change ZC 67, and if you want to, we can incorporate it at the same time, which would be Park Hills subdivision SUBDF-87, if you want to address them both at the same time. If it's easier for you, it's up to you.
Yes, sir. So Ben Beckmeyer for the record, Christina Lubert Engineering. I guess at the meeting a few months ago in May, we didn't really have a chance to respond to comments from the board, so just kind of go over a couple of those things right now, and then we'll go from there. I know that we've got some issues with the R3, R2 zone change. So basically, and I know they put the measurements in the comments and stuff for you guys. Basically, the lot size is the same. So when you change from R3 to R2, you're losing buildable area because the setbacks are greater. So when you lose buildable area, you have to make a choice. Either you're going to make your lots bigger to get bigger houses on them, or you're going to leave the lots the same size and put smaller houses on them. So it's more economical for me to put smaller houses on them. Which in case, it creates a, smaller house subdivision, which is not what you're looking for. So I think the conception of what happens when you change from R3 to R2 is not correct as far as what I'm hearing from people. But, when you lose buildable area, you decrease the house size, you decrease the houses for sure farther away from the street. Might help your parking issues and things like that. But the city adopted a whole parking plan to fix those issues. So I'm not real sure that it's going to make this huge difference that you seem to think. But so we're only going to lose, and really we wouldn't have to lose them, but about 5 lots, which is quite a bit of money. When you switch from R3 to R2, the houses, like I say, would be farther away from the road, but they'd have to be smaller because you lose your buildable area. So I could either build bigger houses, nicer, closer to the road, or we could build smaller ones farther away from the road. I'd rather build the bigger ones, but that's kind of up to you guys, I guess. As far as the road issues, I think they solved that in the work session with access from Coleman, Morgan, and eventually out through Forest Hills, or Forest Ridge, I mean. So we should be okay on that now. I'm pretty sure as far as that goes. The road, Morgan Street, coming in and out of there, it's not the smallest road in town. That's some bad information. It's actually been upgraded with curb and gutter and sidewalk. I mean, there's smaller roads over 1st, 2nd, 3rd Street, whatever is over there by Cherry. There's a lot of smaller roads that haven't been upgraded with curb and sidewalk like that one has. So we should be, fine to use it. And as far as a detriment to the park, I don't see that happening. I mean, these are going to be nice houses. People are going to want to use the park. They're going to take care of their place. They're going to take care of the park. It's going to actually, I think, be an improvement. If anything's a detriment to the park, it's the old pool. That's falling down, fences and weeds growing everywhere and all of that stuff might want to be looked at before we look at putting, saying that the subdivision is going to cause problems to the park. I mean, it's pretty rough right now. So, I mean, let's see. But as far as everything else with the bridge and the things and crossing that creek and runoff and things that have been a concern, I mean, we have engineered drawings and stuff that will be in place for all of that. Corps of Engineers has approved the bridge. They size the pipe. They do everything that for you. It's not something that we're gonna screw up, you know, I mean, we've already got approval from them and DNR to cross that creek, so we should be good. But, as far as that goes, like I said, I mean, that's why we didn't change anything after the work session. We left it R3 because of the fact that R2, in my opinion, until you get something worked out with your different zoning, R2 is going to make a worse subdivision than R3 would, but that's my opinion. But so if you have any questions for me or Christina, or we're here to answer them, but or if Christina has something to say.
No, you covered it pretty well.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on the Park Hills change ZC 67 or Parks Hill subdivision SGBDF-87? Not seeing anybody, we'll move on. Next is Board of Alderman comments.
No comment this evening?
Anyone?
Good.
All right, move on to mayor comments. There was an email that was sent last week and read, two of them. One obviously is Alderman Cullum, who wasn't able to be here, but he is here today, so I'm sure he can address those. And I think it was just statements he made in those. One was from Cheryl Cullum, who did address both myself and both Ward 2 aldermen. I will apologize and say we did not answer any of those questions. Is there any way we could briefly read that? Do you have that with you? No? Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're good, you're good. I kind of spring it on you last minute. So there were some concerns about the changes in the ordinance, same one we just addressed with Josh Poors. And I appreciate her bringing up some of the things, and I do feel like she needs to be represented here. She was read, or her email was read, but I also think that I think we addressed most of the issues inside of her email with some of the stuff we did on Josh Poors. If I didn't, please correct me, but I believe we addressed most of them. I'm kind of briefly reading over it again. I did make some notes. I don't believe we're trying to retrofit anything. I do believe it was some things we did see. And even at that, a mileage thing, I think is something we can fix, and I think it's something we should be able to adjust. I don't think it's actually called, I wouldn't call it retrofitting. I think the mileage, honestly, I think it's something we need to revisit later on, that maybe that's something that needs to come out of there entirely.
Yeah, I think to get qualified and good candidates, that's something that maybe you need looked at down the road.
The one thing she did bring out that I think we need to talk, or I'd like to talk about right now, is the issue about why we didn't go outside. Sometimes with the flow of dealings inside a city, or any workplace for that matter of fact, they try and go internal because it does sometimes hurt morale, sometimes helps morale with a change up. Talking internally with a lot of employees, Randy was well liked, Randy was well received, Randy was wanted by several employees. I won't say everyone because we didn't speak to everyone, but we did speak to a lot of them. We also spoke to business owners and some people out in public. People out in public, honestly, no offense, Brandy, but didn't know who you were. But a lot of business owners stated that they did like dealing with you, and that it was a big, that was a big concern of theirs. With somebody new coming in was maybe hard for them to deal with and not know exactly what they get. So that was part of the premise behind my decision, I can tell you that. I think that I probably speak for some of the board on that, but I won't speak for everyone.
I was not on the board at that time, but I think every good organization will have a succession plan, and that seeing that Brandy was there, I think that shows that the community or the city had done what they should have done, and had someone ready to fill in or backfill for every position. And I think Brandy's position was filled by John, I believe, if memory serves me, which again is a great opportunity for the organization. And I say organizations because I come from one, but I think the way the city handled that was more than fair and good for the community.
Mayor, if I can I provide some accurate information here?
Sure.
So, without revealing any discussions that are confidential or privileged, I think it's important that the public understands the prior board did not go into this with this idea that an outside candidate search or an outside firm was not a possibility. I've been involved in that with various cities. It was an option that we discussed. One of the things that you will find in outside candidate searches, which is what the board, part of what the board decided previously, is that if you have a strong internal candidate, it may not get you the best outside candidates, because these candidates will do their due diligence. And it is a debate that happens in a lot of cities when a succession plan has been put in place and somebody has been trained up to do that. And so I think it is approaching it with a bit of, I just think it's important to understand that these conversations did take place with the prior board. There was consideration of an outside candidate pool. There was consideration of opening it up. There was consideration of all these decisions. And these were the decision to go with Brandy was a decision made by the prior board, but not without looking at, to characterize this, that there was not a discussion about looking an outside candidate, I think minimizes really the amount of work the prior board went through to try to figure out who would succeed Terry Thorne as the city administrator. I think that's an important point that is, you didn't mention something, but it's an important point to make, that the board discussed all these options. The board looked at the pluses and minuses, the benefits and detractors. One of the things that was discussed, if we do an outside search, and what happens if an internal candidate doesn't apply? There are more thought processes in going to an outside search and outside search firm, but those were discussed.
They were. But one thing we did talk about before was becoming more transparent and answering questions. I can't say that, like I said before, honestly, the bottom line is, give you answers, you may not like them, but they're answers. If they're not liked, you can come to us and talk to us, and we can always change up what we can when we can, if we feel that need to. If we don't, it's just going to be something we have to agree to disagree on, and I would appreciate that courtesy. With that being said, next will be the street closing for Fall Festival on September 25th, 2021.
Good evening. This is a request to close the streets from Troy Road down to Morgan for our annual Fall Festival on September 25th. They will be closed from 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. and it'll go all the way down Main Street, and then one block to the north and one block to the south from Troy to Morgan.
Any questions on that, or anybody who hasn't ever been to a street festival have questions on that? I hate saying that, but it's a possibility. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the street closing for Fall Festival on September 25th, 2021.
So moved. Second.
Who'd you get the first one? Quarter? Seconded by Schultz, is that right? Motion made by Alderman Coulter, seconded by Alderman Schultz. Roll call vote.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Crump?
Yes.
Alderman Quarter?
Yes.
Alderman Cullum?
Yes.
Alderman Jaspering?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Next, we'll hear from City Administrator Randy Walters.
Good evening again. The next thing that I have for you is tourism met on Tuesday, July 27th. They are recommending they're recommending approval for a request from Extended Stay for their interstate sign for $600. This is a budgeted item, and they're just asking for approval for that one item.
Any questions on that? I'll entertain a motion to approve the tourism recommendations in the amount of $600.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Alderman McCullum, seconded by Alderman Schultz. Roll call vote.
Alderman Crump?
Yes.
Alderman Quarter?
Yes.
Alderman Cullum?
Yes.
Alderman Jaspering?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy.
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
The other thing that tourism discussed was the fireworks display at the fair this year was canceled. However, we have already purchased those items for the display, and they are asking that we move the fireworks and have that go off at the end of the Fall Festival this year, since we've already paid for it through tourism funds. And if you guys are good with that, then we'll start looking for a feasible location.
Say, where are they going to set up a commercial location at in downtown?
I heard a rumor of Ash Road, but I'm not sure.
I don't know if you'll be able to see them from Main Street.
For all those that don't know, it's a joke. It's where the two aldermen live, so sorry for the humor.
Donated a yard, didn't he?
Yeah. I think they should. It's the least they can do for the constituents.
That's going to be a lot of,
I think we do one just as big as ours.
yeah, we'll probably have more fireworks.
That's fine, thank you. Please keep us updated so we can kind of put it out there either on the website or here on a feasible site.
Yeah.
I
If we
appreciate
find a
it.
location, then that's what the plan will be.
All right.
As far as operational updates, I wanted to let you know that we did host a career fair along with Chamber of Commerce here a couple weeks ago. We had 23 different vendors here, different businesses taking applications. About 40 people showed up to submit applications. I know it doesn't sound like a whole lot. However, with what I've heard from other job fairs that's been going on, that was actually quite a bit. So I'm taking that as a good turnout. I wanted to let you know that at our next meeting, we'll have an ordinance that will be regarding conflict of interest. This is an ordinance that's done every 2 years. We have to file it with the Missouri Ethics Commission by September 15th each year. Basically, it states that the board, any elected official will submit their, what is it called? Their financial disclosure statement. So they'll submit that. So we have to do that every 2 years as an ordinance. So I want to let you know that that will be coming for you at the next board meeting. While we were doing some, I know that here in the past, we have talked about the meters. I don't know if you guys recall that. We talked about the meter pits being inside a house, and we were sending staff in there to change those out and do maintenance on them. So we are currently working on code with that, code changes for that. That will also be coming towards you, for you. Probably in the next 1 or 2 meetings, we'll have that ready. While he was looking at that and getting those changes done, he discovered that there are some specs and some procedures that we do differently, so the whole code needed to be updated on that piece. So that'll be coming in front of you soon. We also had, recently we had some issues with our vicious animal code. So that is also a change that's going to be taking place. So we'll have that in front of you probably in the next meeting or two. And I also wanted to let you know tomorrow night we have a work session at 5:30. And before the August 17th meeting, we have a work session at 5 o'clock. And right now, National Night Out is happening. So if any of you guys would like to attend that after this meeting, they're there till 8 o'clock.
There's some
And
of
that's
us
at the
who
athletic
are
complex.
on the edge to try and get done and get out there. I hate to say that, but I think some family members are probably waiting for us out there, and I think it's going to be fun.
Brandy, on your meters, the issue we have is that it was required or currently is inside the homes, and we're going to move them out? Or
Right. We've been allowing builders to put the meters inside the homes. So whenever our staff is having to go out and maintain those or change those out or look at them, they're having to go inside homes to do that,
Okay.
which kind of puts our staff in an unsafe
Sure.
area. So we're going to change that, so that way all the meters are put in a pit outside.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Before I get away, what are we going to do with current meters that are in homes? Have we discussed that at all?
We have
Just
not
leave
gotten
them?
that far.
Just, okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
I think a lot of times what we do on that is steadily try and change them out as we can and
Right.
take a certain amount per year so it doesn't break the bank, but try
Okay,
and
sure.
adjust certain areas, plan of attack of where we can to try and change it out with permission. Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Finance Officer Dana Velasco.
Good evening. You have before you a list of claims for your approval this evening, totaling $566,494.50. Do you have any questions on that list?
I'll entertain a motion to approve the accounts payable in the amount of $566,494.50.
So moved.
Second.
Who'd you have for the first one? Quarter, okay. Motion made by Alderman Quarter, second by Alderman Deloy. Roll call vote.
Alderman Quarter,
Yes.
Alderman Cullum,
Yes.
Alderman Jaspering,
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz,
Yes.
Alderman Crump.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
You also have before you the financials as of June. I just wanted to remind you that these are preliminary financials. So now that we've actually finished up our year, there'll be some additional accrual entries, things that go in. So when we come before you later in the year with official financials, you may see some slight differences in numbers. Again, in the general fund, you'll see that revenue is below budget in the general fund, but that's, for the most part, related to the American Rescue Plan funds that we thought we would get half of the funds by June, but now it will be more like August before we see that first half. So if you factor that out of there, then general fund is $397,000 above budget. And again, the biggest part of that is related to sales tax. We budgeted very conservatively with the COVID concerns this past year, and we ended up a little bit better than we thought we would. Operating in the general fund is a little bit below budget, $589,000. About half of that is related to wages, so staffing vacancies during that time period. In the water and sewer fund, you'll notice it came in about $73,000 below budget, so water sales were a little bit less than anticipated. Some of the sewer was higher. In the operating expenses in the water and sewer fund, they're about $304,000 below budget. Again, about $89,000 of that related to wages and vacancies. About $19,000 related to meter purchases that weren't needed, and some I&I pump repair that wasn't necessary, so about $79,000 related to that. So those are just a few highlights of those preliminary June financials. Were there any questions related to those?
I don't have a question, I'd just like to make a comment. I appreciate all the employees of the city working as hard as they have over the last few months because of the lack of people that we're hiring, because of the lack of employees. And I'd just like to say that I think they're doing a great job and continue forward, and we can hope we can get some people in to help. Thank you.
You touched on a topic, it's not really towards you, ma'am, no offense, but the topic of the payroll being a lot of the, what we're seeing in the financials. I looked at a Facebook posting that we did as a city, and asking for, or posting a lot of jobs, which seemed, holy cow. We sit here and listen to it, but when you actually have it on a piece of paper in front of you, it looks kind of bad. Until I went and met with some other governmental officials from around the St. Louis area, and we're actually doing not too bad. I hate to say that because I feel like we're hurting, but we're not doing bad. I know some places in one division they're down 46 people, which I know it's a larger area, but holy cow. You know, there again, I'm going to echo off that and say thank you for doing what you guys are doing and doing how you're doing it. Sometimes you're putting extra hours in. These other agencies or other government places were speaking of 16-hour shifts on some of their people, which I hope we're not doing, and I don't think we are. So I appreciate what you guys do. Bear with us. I'm hoping we can make it through this and start hiring people. I said it on the radio this morning, I'll say it again. This is in no way slighting anybody, but if you are affected by the moratorium and you don't have a job, please come apply. We can probably help save you in some areas. Regardless of what the thought process on it and how much heat I take, it's an offer to come out and apply with us and give us a shot. We have good insurance and we have good wages, so, for the area. So, sorry to piggyback onto your report, but I think it needed to be said once you brought that up.
Good point.
Thank you. Next will be Grounds and Maintenance Director Brad Boozy-Cruz.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. You have my monthly report in front of you. Have any questions about that? A couple other things we had, been working out at the pool park. Got the I'm sure some of you have been out there, the 14 tee box in the last rain. The water came over the road for that's the third time now. Washed both the tee boxes out. We've got those fixed. We're going to look into seeing what we can do about getting that culvert underneath there resized to where it should be, and get that taken care of so we don't have that problem again. Other than that, we just been plugging along with trying to get grass cut, and with 3 of us out on the road and stuff cutting, and the other 2 in the cemetery and the other parks. It's pretty much all we've been doing is trying to stay up with the grass with the interstate and everything. So that's and I noticed MoDOT's not been cutting what they've cut back considerably on what they cut now. So that it's really going to be hard for us now. So we'll just have to keep spend a little more time out on the interstate. So.
Brad, I don't mean to make fun, but it's gonna sound a little funny coming out, but do you think you can increase it to a size to handle that water? I mean, these torrential rains are huge.
Oh, no, the size, when that was built, I don't know, the engineer who sized that miscalculated it.
Okay.
And we just need to put a little bigger culvert, which should be 3 5-foot culverts in there instead of the 1 3-foot. So we'll get around to getting it done. So it just
the amount of rain and how fast it comes.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've seen
that. Catches all that off Charlie Redekers out of Lake Chateau, catches all that and dumps down in there. So we're going to have to do something. Otherwise, the roads, it's encroaching on the road now, so it's washing out around the culvert and everything. So it's getting a lot worse. So we're going to have to do something with it. So
thank you for your diligence on it.
All right.
Any other questions for Brad?
No, good.
Thank you, Brad. So next we'll hear from Public Works Director Guy Jeevers, but before you begin, I will tell you I was shared a story about helping out Truesdale here lately when they had an issue. I know you would never brag or claim it, but the person that told me definitely wanted to brag on you and appreciated everything you did. Thank you for extending that of what we talked about helping a neighboring town if they needed it. So thank you.
Welcome.
Oh, and if anybody didn't know, I may get this wrong, so correct me. What part was it that they had break?
The water main break.
Said a water main break, and you guys went over there with the part that we had.
Yeah.
And helped them fix it.
Truesdale called and asked if we had some parts to borrow.
And they were going to be down for a while if they didn't have
got
that.
taken care of.
Yeah. So I mean, if anybody's wondering what it was, I don't want to leave them hanging in suspense. It was a water main break that you guys assisted with your people.
Got to take care of the people.
I agree. So thank you.
Only item I have, I'm not asking for no money.
Thank goodness.
My monthly report, as you well know, a big part of it was the storm cleanup. We had a couple water main breaks, a few sewer calls, and just to get out there that this weekend coming up, they're planning on restriping Main Street. They're going to start on that at 2 p.m. on Saturday. After tomorrow, we're going to set the lighted boards up on Main Street so everybody knows. They're going to work mostly in the evening at night. So we'll drop some cones off. They should be done by Sunday. Usually, there's not a lot of parking late at night. There's a few places where people live on Main Street, but it always works out that we need that. So they're all going to stripe up here too. So that was approved. And anything else?
Speaking of striping, that brings up a point. So that's us, the city, striping the parking areas, correct?
Yes, that's correct. We contracted it out, so we're going to have an individual come in and do the striping.
Now, I've called a few times, and I've had some other people who've asked me about the striping of 47 and that. I understand this MoDOT. Do we know? Have we had any contact with them? Because I've called them at least twice to see, and I always get a message. But I call.
So we go online. What we do is we'll go online and make a concern and enter it online. And people that call that have concerns with MoDOT areas, we tell them to do the same thing, and then to continue if you want to set it up so you do it once a week or once a day, but we do the same thing everybody else does. You can't get a hold of anybody down at the maintenance shed down here like we used to be able to, because they're all out working. And I know from what our staff been saying that they're shorthanded also.
I just know last year when we had the problem, when all the stripes were wore off, they kind of told us, hey, we'll be striping in the second week of July or
Right.
something.
And
I didn't know if anybody heard.
I have not heard.
Okay.
I don't think we have heard anything, but I know I've encouraged people on social media and other places to flood MoDOT with complaints about it. It's the only way it's going to get done. We've talked to state reps in the past. We've talked to senators in the past. I think, what was it, 3 years ago that we got that addressed, that we had it restriped? And I really don't believe, I can't believe, but it's facts that it's worn off already.
And keep in mind, our work session on August 17th, we'll have a MoDOT rep here to discuss that stuff.
So I encourage everybody to come into that work session to give your thoughts on that.
That's all I have.
No, I did have one more thing for you. I actually looked at my phone because it was going off. Ditches cleared out by the school?
By who?
Who did that?
Out by the pool?
School?
Oh, school, we did.
Well, way to go. Because
I think
the
we did
person who
that.
was getting flooded the most in her basement said the water stayed in the ditches last
when it
rain
rained,
and
yeah.
really appreciated it.
I think we did that Thursday or Friday.
They said there was a rain in between then, said all the water seemed to stay in the ditches, and she greatly appreciated it.
Yeah, we
So,
did some investigation to see how that water runs, and when it runs down by the intersection, it runs down the hill, it runs to the back of the yards. But yeah, they cleaned it up and it looks good.
Well, and I know her basement isn't the only one that's getting flooded. I've talked to a couple of her neighbors. I mean, it is something we're gonna have to address eventually and see what's going on. I mean, some of it is how quickly the rain comes down, how fast, all at one time. But some of it is maybe some issues we can address too.
Hope that fixes it for the big part of
But
it.
she really greatly appreciated the fact that we cleaned the ditches out, so.
Guy, is that something we could schedule yearly or something, or somebody drive by and, I mean,
On the
other than
ditches?
just, hey, we got all of a sudden it happens, can we get that on a schedule of cleaning that ditch out?
The way we ditched it this time, it's gonna stay like that for a while.
Okay.
We hogged it out pretty good and hogged it out wide. And we'll just keep an eye on, we check when it rains real hard and that, we'll go around and check our culvert pipes and make sure they're clear. And we usually do that when it's raining, and after a rainstorm, we'll go out and clean them, because then it all gathers up and then we
Sure.
can pick it up. But
Okay. All right,
we've got
thank
some
you.
other ditch work to do over that area too, that we plan on doing.
So if anybody's unclear on the terminology of hogging it out, means it's a little deeper and wider. So that would be hogging it out. I know it's a technical term people aren't familiar with. Actually, there's probably about half the people listening go, yeah, I know what it means. Why are you explaining it? Thank you, Guy. Next would be discussion items. Do we have anybody coming up, or just me?
No, I think this is just for the board to discuss.
Okay, so.
These are all the second readings.
Let me go ahead and advise everybody, we had one Alderman, Alderman Crump who zoomed in, the other two unfortunately couldn't. So I did do ask for a second reading to be called on the next meeting, just for the fact that I would like for them to be here to be able to discuss that. So that was why I initiated that. I was the one that initiated it. So the first one would be the Park Hills rezone for ZC-67. Anybody want to discuss that? Or if you want to combine the two of the rezone for ZC-67 and the Park Hills subdivision SUBD-87 like we did with Speckmeyer, you can definitely clump the two together if you'd like
Okay.
to.
I understand what Mr. Speckmeyer's answers were, comments on the Park Hill, but it still goes back, well, first of all, I want to say one thing. There was no comment about the size of homes that would cause a problem at Binkley Woods. It's the number of vehicles in and out there on a daily basis. That was my concern, is that we're going to have 200 vehicles in and out of there. It had nothing to do with the size of the homes at all. My concerns on it, again, is safety. with vehicles on the streets. You're going to have issues with the shorter driveways. There's not going to be able to park 2 vehicles in there. And so you're going to have more cars. It's going to look similar to what we have over Forest Hill, I believe. And so that's one of my, that's, again, goes back to the safety issue. I believe that we talked about snow removal being an issue in the wintertime when there's a lot of vehicles out there. So that's my biggest concern. And the lack, I think we'll have a little more green space to deal with in the front yards for flooding or water running off. So, and again, long-term issues, I don't think that fits in the city's plans of having any opportunity for someone to put apartments in that area. So that's my big concern on the whole thing. Thank you.
Anybody else like to make comment on that?
Has the board ever voted no on something that has to pertain to neighborhoods in
Rezoning?
the past? Yeah.
Sure, they've turned down rezonings before. Yeah, I mean, it depends on, well, let me put it this way. So, to be honest with you, a subdivision of this size, we've not had come in since Walnut Hollow.
You got one Pinckney Street.
Right, but that's orphan lots. That's not
No.
Pinckney Street.
No.
Or
Pinckney
Pinckney.
Ridge,
But how many homes was it?
90-something.
90-something that came in?
Yeah.
When did that come in? Well,
But he did R2.
He did R2. So I guess what I would say is that we've not had significant residential development. My point is that we've not had significant residential development since pretty much Walnut Hollow was the last one where it's actually been built. Where there's actually been, we've gone through the procedures and the approval process, which is probably 15 years ago. But back then, were there subdivisions that were denied or subdivisions that were modified or rezones changed? Yes.
Well, I, for one, have kind of relaxed my position on the bridge and the Morgan Street access. Now you have 3, right? Coleman, Wolf Road, and that one across there.
Yes, sir.
But I am, like Larry, I'm a little concerned about the R3 zoning. I'd rather see 2.
For what? If you could explain why?
It's less dense.
No, sir.
This back and forth is not the purpose of it, Mayor. It's not the public hearing.
I was just asking why.
And I think we do. I'm just gonna, I mean, I get what you guys are saying. That this arrangement makes it hard for us not to be able to ask and get answers back, especially when the presenter brings it up and we can't actually ask questions and then get questions back. I get we're trying to get at this, but I think we need to modify this because I think there are some questions that it would be lawful for him to be able to ask and him to be able to answer without a major discussion or fight going on. But it's facts that maybe he may need for his vote. So I'm just going to tell you, I think we need to modify this some way, shape, or form. And, you know, I get what we're saying. I get we adopted it in. I'm going to let an exception happen today. If this is going to affect your vote, Mr. Alderman Deloy, then I will allow him to come up and answer some questions that you can ask him.
Well,
It's your option.
I don't know if anything that anybody's going to say is going to change my position.
Okay, that's fine.
But, and I believe that lady sitting beside you said in the planning zoning meeting, there's just as many houses on 2 as you can 3, right? Was that you?
You can have the same number of houses, but the houses will be significantly smaller because the setbacks will prohibit you from, you know, you can get a 56-foot house on or you can put a 50-foot house on. You know, because those setbacks shrink down your building. Sorry.
No.
Guys, like I said, I know this isn't what we did on what we discussed. I just find this hard to do. I'm sorry for anybody else who is feeling like this isn't right to do, but if we have questions that are going to sway a vote before we go into it, I think they need to be answered.
So I somewhat misspoke at the last meeting because I said it wouldn't make a difference, and that's not entirely true. The lot size stays exactly the same. The lot number, in theory, would stay exactly the same. the lot width stays the same. But when the setbacks change, which I was not aware of because I hadn't really researched R2, and I did speak a little out of turn there, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to clarify that. When you shrink up those or you make the setbacks larger in R2, you squeeze up the buildable area. So the only way to do that is to have a lot smaller houses. And you don't think 6 feet is that big of a difference until you want to put a really nice 3-car garage or a nice 2-car garage. You want to fix your parking problems, you have a little bit bigger footprint where that garage can go. So the R3 allows you that more flexibility. We also, the bigger front yard doesn't necessarily get you more parking because a standard parking space in a parking lot is 18 feet long by 9 feet wide. So a 20-foot setback, by the time you have the setback distance and the distance between the right-of-way line and the street, is plenty enough to put 2 cars in. Adding another 5 feet doesn't necessarily get you places for 4 cars. So you don't really change the parking significantly with that extra 5 feet or extra 10 feet of setback. Excuse me. So anyway, but the biggest difference is, in theory, we could only lose a handful of lots and squeeze up the house plans and get pretty close to the same number of houses regardless, but they're not going to be as quality of houses. I mean, well, they'll be quality, but not as big. And when you're talking about what's going to give you tax revenue, I would think you would want the bigger homes because they're going to be worth more. So, and you're going to have a handful more of them in R3 zoning. Because there will be some lots that with the setbacks will become unbuildable.
Can I ask a quick question? Sure. So obviously as part of this process, there's been no representation, no elevations of the size of houses that are being built. We did a study looking at our building permits, and the builder has built the minimum lot size, the smallest houses in Warrenton on the houses he's built so far, 1,000 to 1,200 square feet. You mentioned a 3-car garage. Are these building plans, are you representing that there are 3-car garage size houses going in there? Are you also representing that he's going to be, our house minimum is 1,000 square feet, so is he going to be building bigger houses than what he's built in the other subdivisions? A point of clarification.
Probably
I don't
been.
build a 1,000-foot house, that's misrepresenting what I do.
1,000 to 1,200 square feet is, I believe, what the building permits, when we did the analysis.
1,180 square foot house that I build, and everything else is over 1,200.
I'm not representing what he's going to be
Okay. I just
building.
wanted to
I'm
make
just
sure
saying,
clarification
I'm
on
saying
that.
if you wanted to build a 3-car garage and he didn't want to give up any more lots than necessary, the way to do that is to be in R3 zoning and give you that extra 6 feet. Because you can usually find, I know I just helped a builder in Hallsville, Missouri do a bunch of houses that had 3-car garages that were 56 feet wide. Can't build that house if we get R2 zoning.
Well, those are some of our
Whether he would build
concerns.
that exact house or not, it's,
The other concern is all the water. More ground, you cover up, more runoff you're going to have, right? Right, wrong?
not necessarily, because your ordinances say that I have to take and mitigate down to the pre-development rates. So no more water can leave that site than leaves it right now. So I have to come up with detention structures and holding basins to hold that water back so that it doesn't have that negative impact. That is in your ordinances, and that's why you hire a professional engineer to come in and provide quality stormwater management. There is a large green space that we will design as a detention basin. There's also a couple of smaller basins. Because of the topography, we had to hide water in a few different places. But we've planned for that.
Well, it's going to need some
And
help.
I'm not saying that when we do the final plat, my calculations might come up and go, you know, I need more room for detention and I have to lose this lot over here. That's happened in design before. Because we haven't done the final design. This is a preliminary concept plan to say, here's where we think everything would go. You know, it might get tweaked a little bit one way or the other at the final stage. We might lose a lot for additional stormwater management.
Well, that creek struggles to take the water now. That's what I'm concerned about.
And that's why we...
Don't wanna make it any
That's
worse.
why, as much as possible, we've tried to stay away from the creek. We've designed outside the floodplain so that we won't have to mess with that corridor. But
But
yes.
please understand, we're not trying to be difficult
No,
here. We're
not
just
at
trying to
all.
make sure
And
we
I'm
fix
just trying
it.
to
After it's
understand
in there,
this-
we can't fix it.
Oh, I
It'd be
totally
real hard
agree.
to fix it.
I totally agree. But that's also why you have these requirements for stormwater management within your code to make sure that we don't cause a problem.
Any other questions?
So haven't they done everything they need to do up to the code? DNR approved it, right? Planning and zoning approved it,
Well,
right?
DNR approved land disturbance. They don't approve permanent stormwater. Her statements are correct. Our code has standards that state you can't increase stormwater runoff. So whatever exists, that condition is now, their engineer and our engineer will approve their design to say, yep, based on the numbers, you're not increasing stormwater runoff. Now, that may not address anecdotal situations where people say, well, I think it is increased or whatnot, but her statement is absolutely true that, their preliminary design has stormwater included in it. Our engineer has reviewed it and said, yes, you do comply. You are not increasing the stormwater runoff from their property. And I know there was concerns raised about stormwater and whatnot. Where it becomes relevant is there's two actions in front of the Board of Aldermen tonight. Number one is a rezone. That's a legislative decision. You are saying, do we want R3? There's been discussions. We prefer R2. That is a legislative decision that you all are making as elected officials. And it does affect stormwater, because if you deny the rezoning because you don't want the stormwater, you design the legislative decision because you don't want the stormwater, you don't want it to increase, then that's your legislative decision that has an extremely high level of deference by a court. The preliminary plat is a completely different animal. The preliminary plat is the design. The preliminary plat is, the question is, do they meet code, which our professional planner and our professional engineer has said, if they got R3, this preliminary plat would meet code. So yes, in answer to your question on the second part of it, if they meet it, you all have an obligation to approve it. You can't deny a preliminary plat. However, the rezone is a completely different animal, because you can say, we just don't want this to have this density, or we want to deny it because we want it to come back as R2 or whatnot.
I'm just afraid if we go down this road, that we're just open up a can of worms to never rezoning anything to R3.
Based on the work session, we do have
yeah.
changes we're going to bring back with the R3 and R2 zone based on the direction from the joint work session with planning and zoning that I know have been drafted by our planner and reviewed by staff and are now to me reviewing it, and we're preparing an ordinance. So my comment in response to that is, I think, at least based on the planning session, R2 and R3 will look much different for the next development, where it won't just be a difference between setbacks, which was direction that you all provided.
Well, and again, I think if you take a ride over to Forest Hills, I think you'll see my biggest concern. I believe, or not Forest Hills, is it Forest Hills?
Park Hills. Park Hills.
No, not Park Hills, in the
Forest Haven. A ridge.
Forest Ridge, yeah.
Forest Ridge is not
Okay,
R3.
those streets there concern, I mean, you drive through there, that concerns me, so.
Any other questions? All right, next will be the change to code regarding minimum standard for street light construction.
I'll just give you a brief thing on this. We originally had changed our streetlights here a while back. When we spec'd it out, it ended up being an incorrect, a light that they no longer supply. So we've had to go back and redo that again. So this is just to update it with the light that we can now obtain.
Any questions on that? Next will be the agreement with McMahon Berger, is it Berger? PC. I will say I'd like to open that a little bit, just based on the fact that I think it was explained a little more in depth to what it was initially. So if you would explain it a little bit more, please.
Absolutely. So this is an agreement, an employment council agreement. We would pay as we use them. So it's not somebody that we would have on retainer. We would pay them as we use them. He specializes more, this law firm specializes more into the intricate and complicated issues that could come up with HR. By all means, Greville Law Firm can do that. However, it would take them a longer process because that's not their specialty. So this would be basically if we had any kind of HR issues that came up or federal law that came up, we could pick up the phone and contact them and get an answer right away. So instead of no offense to Greville, but instead of contacting him and waiting for him to do the research.
Yeah, and if I can, Mayor, I do want to speak on this because I gave an update, and I think Brandy gave a very accurate statement. Typically, the employment HR issues, because we've consulted with John Marino before for McMahon Burger, just because he does it for a lot of public entities, and I've met him and I know him, and these questions come up, and typically they're situations where you need an answer right now. For me to get into the American or the Age Discrimination Act or the some of the ADA claims or some of the ERISA claims that come up, it is pretty extensive research for me because that's not something I do every day. This is something that they do every day. They provide HR updates for free. They provide HR training for free. It's trying to formalize a relationship that we've used in the past, and also hopefully to provide through some of their free training and free opportunities and other HR background. They're basically an HR law firm, and the 1 or 2 times a year when it's not, as I said at the last meeting, we've done every single unemployment claim. We've done the garden variety discipline. It's nothing related to that. It's really related to these really intricate specialization things where we need an answer right away because somebody's filed some paperwork with us for, let's say, for example, what's the leave they take? FMLA. And we've had situations where they've then layered it with EEOC discrimination claims related to an FMLA leave and whatnot, and just the interplay of it, and we have to make a decision in a moment, and instead of guessing, having that expertise to be able to pick up the phone and say, I mean, I don't, this is maybe something that happens once or twice a year, but typically we're scrambling to figure it out because we don't have the access to that HR information and that really tip of the needle kind of answer that we need right in the moment. So, like I said, if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to explain it further.
I think some of the explanation I was looking for from last week was that there are times that whether people feel it's right or not, but lawyers share information with each other freely sometimes just to be able to obtain it. You said you have talked with them before to obtain information. Sometimes it's easier to go straight to the person we need to get the explanation, especially if you're busy. It's nothing faulting anywhere else or anything else, but I think that's what one thing we talked about before was going directly to them on a billing as needed situation.
Yeah, I mean, and when I worked as an assistant prosecutor, we had Doreen Dotson, right, from Stolar Partnership. She was the employment lawyer for the county, even though as the prosecutor, we were the general counsel for the county as a 4th-class county. So I cannot specify enough that the city can pay me to do it, but what may take me 15 hours of research typically is a 15-minute phone call with people that are really well-versed and do this every day. It's just the employment stuff comes up. These very intricate employment issues come up maybe once or twice, maybe a year, maybe once a year. And it's just trying to give the staff a little bit more quicker turnaround and access to the information, because it will take me, I'll have to start reading the statutes and reading the federal law, and I think it's going to be less of a more inconvenience. I'm happy to take the work, I will say that, if you guys give me that, but I think it's better for staff, and I know we've developed that relationship over time with them as a resource.
I'm not saying for it. I will also like to put in there, though, it's not uncommon for other governmental entities to have several different lawyers on retainer to answer specific questions when needed. So.
And the idea of it, this attorney not being on retainer, I think pay as you go, I think that's a great way to work with this. So.
Any other questions?
I just got one question. Chris, if you could, under this it talks about the billing rates. Could you explain that more in depth?
Yeah,
And what ours would be?
they're obviously much higher rates than what I have. I would tell you that, and it's still a municipal, it's still a municipal level rate. You pay for the expertise, right? So, I don't know what's in my contract right now, but I used to have a specific provision for employment stuff. It was higher because I'd spend more time on it. The idea, I think what you'll see from these labor law firms, they typically have a multitude of government clients, so it's a higher rate because the time they really need from you is this much, especially if you're not having them do all the background work, which is something we've always done. I mean, Brandy did HR for a long time. We've worked on this stuff for a long time. So I think you see a higher rate because it's such a specific level, just like you'd see a higher rate for our special bond counsel that was here last time, because there's only a few firms that they do it, and so they have a higher rate.
Any other questions? All right. Next is the change in code for city administrator. I think we discussed this last time. I think I know there was a clerical error. I'll take the fault for it. I didn't catch it. That's part of my job. Didn't catch it before we got here. It was adjusted by Alderman Deloy. So if there's any heat to be given, it's on me. I should have caught it. So I think the only change we're asking for is the mileage. For the miles that the city administrator will live away from the city or be accessible to get to the city, I think is actual better terminology for that. Any questions on that? All right. Next will be change in code regarding vacation.
This is the update to the vacation policy that I had sent you previously, and we needed to update code where we added the week at 5 years, and we added an additional 8 hours for 11 years, just to kind of reward longevity.
Any questions on that?
No.
I guess my question before we head into bills would be, Melody, do you have the amendment that was asked or was placed in the first reading of, I guess it's, give me one sec, bill number 52-21?
Yes, I've changed all the bills to, they reflect the new date, and they just have, the change was the mileage.
Okay. All right. So we'll move on to bills to ordinance. This is second reading only on the bills. So it'll be the second reading and then a roll call vote for either passage or failure of the bill. So I will entertain a motion for the second reading of bill number 31-21.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Deloy, seconded by Alderman Jaspering.
An ordinance authorizing the rezoning of approximately 35.34 acres located on the west side of South Morgan Street, approximately 1,575 feet south of West Walton Street, from Ag Agriculture Reserve District to R3 High Density Residential District, and amending the zoning district map thereon.
Roll call vote.
Alderman Cullum?
Yes.
Alderman Jaspering?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
No.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Crump?
No.
Alderman Quarter?
No.
Well, that hasn't happened in a while, so we have a tie. 3-3. So, I'm going to tell you, after hearing all the things and taking extensive notes, I'm going to go ahead and pass it for the fact that I think some of the engineering that I did ask about was covered in it. I was impressed by that. I know some of the people living around there may not agree with it, but I think the South Morgan Street is ours to address as a city, not the developers. If that is an increased traffic, that is something I stated long ago in the meeting that we have to adjust. That's something as a city we need to deal with as infrastructure. I know that's going to be disagreed upon, but I think that is our job to maintain that. I think we've taken the proper steps to address the R2 to R3 changes that we want, but that does not encompass this. I'll tell you one of the biggest factors for me saying yes is because I know this isn't putting it on the back of them. This is supporting them. Before this board came into effect, we did ask and gave marching orders to our workers, and they'd work diligently with Mr. Beckmeyer, sometimes to good, sometimes to bad, but all in all, they worked diligently to try and provide what was asked. So. I will entertain the second reading of bill number 32-21.
So moved.
Motion made by Alderman Deloy. Is that who you had, or did you have Schultz? Okay, Schultz. Alderman Schultz. Seconded by Alderman Cullum. Roll call vote, or I'm sorry, reading.
An ordinance accepting the preliminary plat for the subdivision known as Park Hills by the city of Warrenton, Missouri.
Roll call vote.
Alderman Jaspering.
Yes.
Alderman Deloy.
Yes.
Alderman Schultz.
Yes.
Alderman Crump. Alderman Crump.
Yes.
Alderman Quarter.
Yes.
Alderman Cullum.
Yes.
Yes.
I think he's on delay.
That's 7-0, but if we knock the delay down, it's 6-0, so the bill passes. I'll entertain the second reading of bill number 50-21.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Alderman Cullum, seconded by Alderman Jaspering.
An ordinance repealing and replacing Section 540.010 of the Municipal Code of the City of Warrenton, Missouri regarding minimum standards for streetlight construction.
Roll call vote.
Alderman Deloy.
Yes.
Alderman Schultz.
Yes.
Alderman Crump.
Yes.
Alderman Quarter.
Yes.
Alderman Cullum. Alderman Jaspering.
Yes.
Bill passes 6-0. I'll entertain a motion for the second reading of bill number 51-21.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Schultz, seconded by Alderman Quarter.
An ordinance authorizing execution of an agreement with McMahon Burger PC and the City of Warrenton, Missouri for Employment Council Retention Services.
Before I say roll call, I'm going to tell you, I'm just glad it's not me that was having problems with that, so.
Sorry.
You're good, because I had the same problems. Roll call vote.
Alderman Schultz.
Yes.
Alderman Crump.
Yes.
Alderman Quarter.
Yes.
Alderman Cullum.
Yes.
Alderman Jaspering.
Yes.
Alderman Deloy.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Entertain a motion for the second reading of bill number 52-21.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Deloy, seconded by Alderman Cullum.
I'm sorry, who was first, sir?
Deloy.
Deloy.
That's who I heard. I'm sorry if it was somebody else.
And Cullum.
Yes.
An ordinance amending Section 110.300, City Administrator of the City of the Municipal Code of the City of Warrenton, Missouri regarding qualifications.
Do we have to read the amendment in it? Amending to take out?
No, because last meeting, the motion was voted on to amend the bill, so
Okay,
it's already been amended.
Just wanted the
You're voting on
clarification. That way there's no questions whenever it comes out. Roll call vote.
Alderman Crump.
Yes.
Alderman Quarter.
Yes.
Alderman Cullum.
Yes.
Alderman Jaspering.
Yes.
Alderman Deloy.
Yes.
Alderman Schultz.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Or bill passes 6-0, my error. I'll entertain a motion for the second reading of bill number 54-21.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Cullum, seconded by Alderman Schultz.
An ordinance repealing and replacing Section 125.060 of the Municipal Code of the City of Warrenton, Missouri regarding vacation.
Roll call vote.
Alderman Quarter.
Yes.
Alderman Cullum.
Yes.
Alderman Jaspering.
Yes.
Alderman Deloy.
Yes.
Alderman Schultz.
Yes.
Alderman Crump.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0, or bill passes 6-0. I will entertain a motion to close the regular Board of Alderman meeting.
So moved.
Who are you going to give it to?
I don't know.
Deloy mopping it up all night. We're gonna give it to Quarter. Deloy, you wanna make a second?
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Quarter, second by Alderman Deloy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. We are so adjourned. Thanks, folks.